Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela Embon, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Welcome back to the Life Engineering Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriela Embon, author of Becoming a Power Couple, 4 Pillars to Engineer a Legendary Marriage. This is a podcast for people who want to create a life with no regrets, both in their careers and their relationship. Because success isn't just about what you build professionally. You already know this is also about what the life you're building alongside it is. And that's why I'm so excited for today's conversation, because it's exactly about that. But let me tell you the story of how all of this started. A few weeks ago, I was standing on a stage in Toronto, speaking to a room full of MSPs, managed service providers, owners, and leaders. And we talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in business. How do you build a successful company without losing the people you're building it for? We talked about leadership. We talked about leadership at home, about protecting your marriage while growing your business, about making sure that success doesn't come at the expense of your health, your family, or your peace. But here's what happened. After the session, I had so many conversations with owners who said some version of the same thing. I wish someone had told me this years ago. And it reminded me that behind every growing MSP, there's a human being trying to figure out how to build a great business and a great life at the same time. Then, long after that, someone reached out and said, Gabriela, there's someone you need to meet. His name is Brian Gillette. They told me the two of you are helping the same community from different angles. Brian is helping MSP owners build stronger businesses. You are helping them build stronger lives. You need to meet. So, Brian has become one of the most respected voices in the MSP community by completely rethinking the way business owners approach sales. He has a company called Feel Good MSP. I apologize for that. He's helping leaders replace pressure with trust, transactions with relationships, and scripts with authentic conversations that actually help people. So, as I started learning more about his work, something clicked. Brian isn't just teaching people how to sell, he's also teaching people how to connect. And that's exactly why I'm so happy to have him on this podcast. How are you, Brian? Welcome, Brian, to the show.
Gabriela, thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm like more excited at listening to your intro. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to get into this. Glad to be here.
I'm excited to bring these two conversations together: how to build a business that thrives while also creating a life you can't wait to come home to. And what a better person than to do this with you, Brian. So truly welcome. I'm very excited for our conversation. And before we dive into your work, which I know is brilliant, and I know you're very passionate about what the impact you're bringing to the MSP world, I'd love to our listeners to learn more about you, to know you. What led you to create Feel Good MSP?
Yeah, I think like all good things, it was truly born out of necessity. And it happens to just be a convergence of 2 or 3 major culminative chapters of my life when I realized that work and family and spirituality actually are exactly the same thing. But I started Feel Good MSP because when I was working in a managed service for a managed service provider as a head of sales, I didn't have that many resources, and I was figuring it out and looking around, and I found like every sales training program, especially the ones that had the most compelling social proof, I just couldn't stand them. Like the guys running it, it's always like a high intensity male in a really tight t-shirt who's just like screaming at you. And I felt like I had to choose between being a great salesperson or being a good person. And that was like, I think it's a false dichotomy. I think we can be both. But the more I pulled on that thread, the more I realized, oh, we can't just challenge like superficial tactics. I think we have to challenge the existential DNA of sales culture in order to actually solve this problem where I can choose between being a good person and being a good salesperson. How do I be a good person who's a great salesperson? I have to actually go all the way to the foundation. And so that started the journey for me of how do we essentially reinvent a sales philosophy, which I realize sounds quite grandiose. But in order for us to all feel like ourselves, be the best versions of ourselves, while also doing very, very well.
I love that. And what did you find in that foundation that was broken?
Yeah, it's something that I call the adversarial sales complex. It's a core belief that when you're selling, you're in competition with your prospect. So I have to win a sale, but that effectively, through the transitive property, means you have to lose. So the prospect, instead of the person you're there to support, becomes the obstacle you're there to overcome through means of manipulation, coercion, intellectual, sparring, whatever, repetition, brute force. We get them to do what we bend them into submission, into buying our product. That's like the core, actually, that's the philosophy that drives almost all sales. And even though if you're listening to that going, yeah, but that's not me. Okay, but that is the ecosystem. That's the lexicon in which we live. Think about it. We call salespeople hunters.
Absolutely. And you might say this is not how I do business, but I know how I feel every time a salesperson calls me. I want
Yeah,
to talk to them.
right. Yeah,
So
like
it,
that's evidence, right? It's evidence that the fact that we use salesy as a derogatory adjective is a sign that we think of sales as we have a derogatory outlook on the profession itself. And that is because of these unhealthy dynamics that have worked their ways into performance. And, we'll get into all this, but it's, shame. It's number one, it's motivated by shame and fear of failure. And when you're more motivated by the fear of failure than you are by the pursuit of success, there's an open door in your heart, in your processes, in your life for these toxic and negative, dirty fuels like shame to come in and create really unhealthy balances.
so I can see how we carry a lot of limiting myths or beliefs about sales. We really have it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So could you list them and then give us the more empowering version of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is a good exercise. Let me think of the most succinct way to do this. Donald Miller gives us a helpful framework in the story brand that I'll lean on heavily for this. The limiting belief is that in order to win a sale, I must overcome my prospect. That means I am the hero of the sale and they are the villain or they are the damsel. The correct positioning is the prospect is the hero of the sale and I am the humble guide. So
Yes.
the stakes are theirs, not mine. And when I've done my job well, I'm actually kind of invisible. Nobody gives Yoda credit for defeating Darth Vader, but Luke would have never done so without him, right? So that is the first most foundational transition is we go from being the main character of the exchange to being the guide and letting them be the main character of the exchange.
And how do we do that?
We have to accept an abundance mindset that it's actually okay to not do a deal if it's not the right deal.
Okay. So we'll get into the how later because I got ahead of myself. Let's go back to the list.
Yeah. That's going to be, I think, a big foundation. My second one is that in order to be a sales rep, I have to be the best, or I have to be a specific version of myself. So I call it the sales mask. We play a character when we are selling. And all of us have characters that we play in different circumstances. Listen to somebody talking when they're talking to you. If you're having a conversation at a bar with your friends and one of them gets a phone call from an unknown number, listen to the change in their voice when they answer that phone. They'll go from themselves to hello. They're now playing a version of themselves that they're being guarded. So they're playing a stronger version of themselves that is less perceptible to, that's I want to be a bulletproof version of myself and let this person on the other line know that I can't be messed with. So I'm going to play a guarded version of me. Or when we check into a hotel, or when we are checking in on our table, or we're speaking to our Uber driver, oftentimes we're speaking to our spouse or significant other, we're playing characters. And the truth is that sales mask is the thing that other people are allergic to.
Mm-hmm.
It is inauthenticity at its finest. So if you believe you're not good enough to sell, it's impossible to be authentic, because you have to play an inauthentic version of yourself to compensate for your own fear. So if instead we accept that there's no such thing as being qualified to sell, all there is a human connection that is you're not solely responsible for. All you can do is offer a connection to another person and see if they accept it. If we can make that primary pivot and accept that we are not the main character, those two things will revolutionize your entire sales life.
I love that. Basically, come to the call without being needy, with a serving mindset. I'm here to serve. I don't need anything. If it serves them, great. If not, it's great too.
And I want to know what you think about that, because sometimes people hear this and think that there's an overcorrection where people are like, oh, I'll just be super friendly and just build rapport, and I'll do the Carnegie style, like how to win friends and influence people. And if they say no, I'll say that's okay. And then they end up being very ineffective. But I'm curious, I mean, you worked with so many professionals on communication and probably conflict if they're working on marriage and stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on that? On how do we achieve that without compromising clarity and authenticity, essentially creating conflict resolution skills to hold the prospect accountable to solve their own problem without being super pushy? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that these are, as you said, two other sides of the same problem. In both modes, you are in correction mode, whether you're pushy or you go, I'm just going to be super friendly and whatever, doesn't matter. I think none of them align. I think that when your client or your prospect says, I'm not interested, and you know that what you have to offer can be of great service, it is your responsibility to go deeper. No, for me, is let's go deeper. So if we're not understanding each other, you're clearly, or maybe you're not understanding what I am offering. My job is to go deeper and ask more clarifying questions.
Yeah.
And
Right.
not to, because then he said no, okay, no, I'm going to be friendly and I'm walking up. That's also coming from fear. So come from curiosity, not from fear. The more curious you are, the deeper questions you ask, the more you understand. And maybe your product is not the right product, but you know who to refer to that person. Once you actually go deeper, ask clarifying questions, and you really come from a genuine desire to serve.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. Like, curiosity is, I like this. I like to say that curiosity equals charisma,
Yes.
because it's the trick to getting people to like you is just show interest in them. That's literally all it takes to get people to like you. But sometimes it's a delicate balance, and I got to be careful when we're talking. And I don't want to talk in sound bites in such a way that people will misinterpret what I'm just talking about with the Feel Good Close, because like no means no in almost every context, you know? And so when somebody goes, I'm not interested, thank you, we don't go, well, come on, you don't even know what come on, you haven't even let me pitch yet. I'm going to,
No.
like, that's not the same thing. But you have to think about the context a little bit of somebody who shows disinterest, and remember the existing prejudice against salespeople, and recognize where that no might be, what they're actually saying no to. You know, the concept of call it conversational equivocation or moral equivocation. Imagine, I'll give you an example. Is, let's say I'm on the street, busy downtown, and my job is to give away $100 cash in $5 bills. People walking by, and I go, hey, would you like $5? Hey, would you like $5? I'm going to guess more than 50% of people will say, no, thank you. Because think about it. They're going, what do you want for it? What's the catch? Where'd the money come from? Who are you? Why are you doing this? They don't understand your motives, and therefore they assume that you have an ulterior motive or that you have malintent, because they don't understand, and therefore they're going to assume negative. They're going to go, this is stolen money, or you're going to make me buy your dumb CD afterwards, or I got to talk to you about the environment for 45 minutes, or I got to give you my email address. They're assuming there's a catch because they don't know, because everybody knows there's no such thing as a free lunch. Now, fine. Now, if you were in that role and you were tasked with giving out that money, you would think about, hang on, I need to package this differently than just, do you want $5? You go, hey, this is completely free and there's no catch. Give me 5 seconds. I have a benefactor. He asked me to give away $100. I literally need nothing from you. This could be the end of the conversation. Do you want this $5 bill? They would go, they'd take it and they'd back away. And you go, have a good day. And then you turn your back to them. It would work because you positioned it differently. So you preempted a no by contextualizing the ask so that they don't have to feel as threatened. Now imagine you're a doctor. You have a vaccine in your hand or a cure to a disease that everybody has, make it a make-believe disease, and don't you call it a cure, whatever. You get what I'm saying. And everybody walking down the street needs it. There's zero side effects. As a fact, there's zero side effects to this problem, to this thing. For a fact that if they get that disease, they'll die. And you say, free vaccines. And they go, no. You would have a moral obligation to say, I completely understand that you don't know me or trust me. I get that. You don't even know what's in this vial. Please, I've got some materials here. If you give me 5 minutes, I might save your life. And if you're not interested at the end of the 5 minutes, I'll let you walk away. You don't even have to tell me your first name. But please give me a chance to explain what we're doing, because our mission is very important. That's all sales is, in my mind. And that's, I think, the difference between bullying your way into somebody who's saying, I don't want to talk to you, and leading with curiosity and empathy and understanding their prejudices and helping them navigate through them.
Absolutely. Connection has to come first. The way that we teach this to the coaches in our academy is you have to create connection. You cannot become operational or offer if you don't connect with the person. But even after you connect with the person, you want to create a gap where you can fit in. When you say there is this illness that everybody's exposed to, you are creating a gap. And the only cure is this vaccine. You created a gap. But it's not the same to say, when the vaccine, you created zero gap. There's no, I don't feel that I need you. There's no gap for me. It's not that I'm here and I know I need to be there. I am unvaccinated and vulnerable to this disease and I need to be immune. So I think that our job also is to, when we are selling a service, a product that we believe to be of great service, we have to educate ourselves. As he says, your moral obligation to educate yourself on how to do it properly. First is connect, but then create that gap.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you can come in as a solution to a problem.
Yes, I love that. And you find that even in selling what you do. And I'm assuming that it's not just for selling technology or selling managed services. Like, you see that even you said to your coaches, like, it sounds like you see that everywhere.
Exactly. I think the biggest mistake people do when they try to sell is they focus on the benefit of the product before they understand what the need of the person is. Before they connect and become curious about, okay, let's talk and see if I can help you. I want to understand first what your needs are. Why did you call me? Yeah. Why did you come to my booth? What prompted you to inquire? And we first need to listen. And that creates bond and connection to begin with, and empathy. You cannot come from empathy if we don't start by listening, right? But we get so, I could say, I guess, needy or attached to the result that we start talking about how amazing the product is or the service is.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's what comes across as pushy.
Exactly.
Is when you're giving something kind of out of order, like the results to an outcome for a problem they don't have makes you sound very out of touch. And it's evidence that you don't actually care about them. In their mind, this is evidence that you don't care about me. You haven't even stopped to ask me if I know what this disease is. Hey, have you heard about the Boobaloo virus?
Exactly. Exactly.
And if you lead with, we call it empathy-driven discovery. And that's really all it is. Like, empathy is, first of all, trying your best to understand and to not take personal any of their predispositions. Like, this is where the average business owner thinks blank about IT based off of my customer discovery interviews. They already think I'm going to be a pushy nerd who's awkward to talk to, and they don't really care about the bits and bytes. That's great. Don't take it so personal. But that means we need to help navigate, we need to create a journey for that person that doesn't conflict, or that actually helps them navigate through those prejudices and gives them an opportunity, actually ennobles that person with an opportunity to see the light. Now that's empathy. And the second part is listening and navigating alongside them. But I also truly believe that conflict is empathy. Like, if I'm married and I never confront my wife when she hurts my feelings, I'm not loving my wife.
Absolutely.
There's opportunities for connection that I'm leaving behind, and I'm saying yes to distance because it's easier. So when a prospect says, I don't need that, I have a Mac, Macs don't get viruses. This is now, conflict resolution skills are now on the table. Like, okay, here's what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you say that because you use a MacBook, you don't have any threats for cybersecurity. And it sounds like that's what you've heard before. Do I have that right? Like, that's the first thing you would do is if your spouse says something and you go, this is what I heard you say, make sure that they feel heard. Then you share your response, that they give you a chance to make sure you feel heard. Like, that's conflict resolution 101. That's actually what sales is. So I think it's incredibly empathetic and incredibly authentic and sincere to challenge false notions, but do so using those relationship development skills rather than just saying, well, that's wrong. Here's a white paper about why I'm right. That's not going to work.
Totally. And sometimes also the more a person resists, it's because they actually need it.
Mm.
We have a lot of underlying fear of success and growth or failure, the other side of the coin, especially when we are working with solopreneurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're still relying a lot on their own mindset. They are the business. So sometimes success is actually a sign that this is what they need the most. But that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a second question because we both chosen to dedicate part of our work to serving MSP owners. So, from your perspective, what makes this industry so unique? What are the strengths that you admire the most about MSP leaders? What are the challenges you see the most?
The most unique thing about the industry is how tribal it is. MSPs, like other MSPs, they support other MSPs. There's whole forums where they just share all of their solutions with other competitors freely. But tribalism has it's tribalism in what that word means is it informs how you treat people in your tribe and how you treat people out of your tribe. And there are staunch barriers for the industry against people out of the tribe. So if you're not an MSP focused vendor or you're not an MSP, then the average MSP assumes that you have no context for them and that your advice isn't going to apply to them. They feel like their problems are super unique. And that's, to me, is something that's the most fascinating about the industry. I have theories as to why it is, which based on the average temperament, honestly, of technologists. But that I find super interesting. And I think go ahead.
Can you talk more about that? What do you mean by that?
I'm going to, how do I say this in a way? What's the right way to say this? The average MSP owner I speak to was somebody who is interested and good at technology for most of their life, worked for somebody doing it. Their MSP was mismanaged. They were undernourished, under-resourced, underappreciated, overworked. And they went, I've got to get the hell out of here. I'm doing this myself. That's the average MSPs like that. And that journey is essentially an entrepreneur who has been misunderstood for most of their life. They were shoved in lockers in the 80s. They were president of the AV club in the 90s, and then they were completely underappreciated as an employee in the 2000s. And in the 2010s, they said, enough is enough. I'm taking control. And as a result, you get strong-willed people who are fiercely protective of the people that they can trust and incredibly judgmental, or not judgmental, but wary of people who they don't have any relationship with. I've really oversimplified it, but that's the
No, but it makes
story.
a lot of sense. I think you explained it very well. It shows you the mindset that people carry because of the history they carry, right?
Yeah.
So they're protecting mechanisms, they're patterns.
Yeah.
And you cannot, okay, maybe that's a very strong statement, but in my belief, you cannot become successful as an entrepreneur when you don't address those hidden stories and patterns.
Yeah. Or at the very least, you have a ceiling.
I'm aware.
You have a ceiling of success that you will never penetrate.
Exactly.
And the work of developing as an entrepreneur is just developing as a human being.
Exactly. I always say the journey of self-development is parallel to the journey of business success. It cannot be otherwise.
Yeah, completely agree. So I think that's both a strength and a weakness of the industry, to be honest. I think also though, so yeah, it's a strength and a weakness. It's such an interesting group of people, and one of their big strengths is that they accept that they usually are excited by change. Technologists like things to evolve, which is really good. Accountants hate change. They want to use the same thing forever because that's how they roll. Engineers, very often the same. They're ritualistic by design. That's what they get paid to do. And technologists, they want to automate it. They want to move on. They want to think bigger. That's the nature of their kind of brains. So that is really exciting. But then, it's just a really hard industry to sell in because we sell a complicated, mysterious, and expensive product that everyone needs and no one understands. So then you insert people like me. Now I represent something to these people before they've even met me. I'm a sales coach. Sales and marketing people are like the high school jocks, and the technologists are like the high school nerds, if you're, in the cliche. And there's kind of inherent conflict. Like they're different social circles. And if the nerds in the AV club and the debate people and the chess team, which by the way, I was on debate and I was on the chess team, they have a separate, part of the cafeteria. And then all of a sudden the star quarterback sits down with them and goes, I could help you be better at audio video. They're going to be like, buzz off, Chad, And so when people like me come in, there is an underlying prejudice. They just assume that I don't know those things, and they assume that I'm really just there to take advantage of them. And they don't trust me. That prejudice, that distrust is deeply embedded in them. And so I have to work a lot against those prejudices. I have to have demonstrated a tremendous amount of competence before anybody will ever take me seriously as an actual vendor. That's why I focus so much on making myself and my expertise known. You know what I mean? I'm assuming
Absolutely.
that like you probably feel something similar. Like you touch on this touchy stuff, like marriage. I mean, for people who have a painful marriage, anybody talking about marriage, like a lot of times men, they're like, I don't want to talk about that at all because they feel so vulnerable. So I mean, what's that journey been like for you getting in front of these people and being like, hey, I help people who create more successful marriages. Do you get a lot of defensiveness and how does that manifest?
I'm so glad you asked the question because I was interviewed today earlier and somebody asked me, what's the most surprising thing that I've experienced since launching my book? And my answer to that question was how the technology industry has embraced the concepts that are described in my book, perhaps because the book is written in their language. It's written it brings the parallels between engineering and relationships. So, but when I think about the conferences that I offer to MSPs, I don't feel that resistance at all. To the contrary, I feel like they are relieved that is talking about what they're feeling and validating them, but without making them feel that there's something wrong with them, because there isn't. It's
Mm.
just that, to be honest, nobody taught us that we need to do marriage development. We grow up believing that we do career development, business development, and then we grow up believing that the goal is to find a spouse or a long term relationship. And once you do, the job is done. But on the other hand, we know that anything that is extraordinary was built by investing in that. It's not magic, right? The problem is not that people don't believe it's needed, is they don't know how to, because nobody teaches us. The best we do is we mimic what we saw at home, and not everybody had a good example. So I talk about the gap, right? So I validate how people feel, and then I say, here's how we close that gap. There is a framework, and the way that the framework assists people is it's a very comprehensive way to rebuild connection and protect your relationship with what you already know from the technology world. We're not talking about new concepts you have to know. I talk in the language that people relate and understand, because at the end of the day, it's the same. It's leadership at work, leadership at home. Same as you are responsible as a leader to build a culture in your workplace that people want to go to work every day. You're responsible for the culture you build at home.
Mm.
So, and one of the questions that I start with is, you all came, I usually start the conference like this. I say, you all came to this conference to grow your business, you know, to get the new tools or whatever is new in your industry, to stay updated. What are you working so hard for? Why are you doing this?
Mm.
Everybody says, for my family. Great. So if you're doing this for the people you love the most, why is it that this is the area in our lives that we tend to lead the least, or unintentionally? And the problem is not people don't care. And the problem is not people are not responsible. They care and they are very responsible. The problem is that we assume that that's enough, that responsibility equals connection.
Wow, that's profound. We assume responsibility equals connection because we're like, well, it's almost like this is a way that I know how to show love. Where in my mind, this is me showing you love. Hey, I paid for all the bills. I did the blah, blah, blah. I sat down. I got home at 8 p.m. I can't talk right now because I'm dying inside from my whatever. And then we go, but I just laid down my whole day for you. And in our mind, that's like, I slayed a dragon for you, or, whatever. That's a really, really profound. I was going to ask you this because this is something I see often, and I don't want to villainize ourselves or the average listener or whatever, but I think it's interconnected to what you're talking about. So many of us, because we don't have a framework. So let's say that we're feeling tension in our relationship, or we're feeling a little bit of distance at home or something, and we're going, I just don't know how to solve this. So what I have found is that top performers are very bad at being bad at things. So they focus on their areas of strength, or they will try to essentially let their areas of strength colonize their areas of weakness. And I mean, I remember speaking to an entrepreneur, or let me say it this way. I have found that many people inadvertently end up hiding from their family life in their business. And so they're calling it this pursuit of greatness and this fanatical work that is usually recognized externally as a honorable work ethic, I feel is so often actually not motivated by greatness, but motivated by shame. And
Absolutely.
we're so,
And
go ahead.
that creates burnout.
And that's when you burn out. That's when you get sick. That's when you're like, I need 2 beers and an Ativan to come down every day because I can't. I'm so afraid that this marriage isn't going to happen, or I'm so afraid that my business, that I'm a nobody if this thing fails, that I'm going to clock 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, and then I'll get praised on LinkedIn for that. While Elon Musk sleeps on his floor every day, he must be doing really well. No, he's not at all. And he would be the first to tell you he's not like a normal, good, healthy person. He knows he's great at making money. And this isn't an Elon speech, but I'm just saying, like, I wonder how many people are hiding from their problems inside of their area of genius, which is, I know how to work really hard in my business, And so then they end up avoiding the marriage, avoiding the kids, avoiding the dynamic or the conflict. And then the divide grows deeper.
Probably more than we think. Well, we can look at the statistics. 50% for first marriages, statistics of divorce, 65% for second marriages. When you say they're afraid that their marriage won't go well, they should be. Divorce is messy. Divorce is painful for both partners and families. Divorce is expensive and messy when you have a business, even more so. So we should be afraid of it. But rather than being paralyzed by the fear, like you said, they're not good at not being good, we should, before we look for the solution, see this as an opportunity. I think that the area that we struggle the most in life is exactly what we came here to do. When I say here, I am more spiritually speaking, is the area that's going to provide us with the most amount of growth and the most amount of reward. I cannot tell you how many business owners I have coached that once they started investing in their relationship, their business took off without them doing anything differently.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So, where you struggle the most is where you have the biggest opportunity for reward.
So rather than my business is struggling and I'm working long hours and it's putting a strain on my marriage, and that's why my husband and I fight all the time. Is it possible that if you, instead of saying, once my business is fixed, my marriage will be easier, that you go, hang on, what's the thing I can control right now? What is the thing I'm the most responsible for? Well, I'm one of two parties in this covenant that I made that will be costly in every single area of both of our lives if it fails. And it's causing me, the number one cause of stress in my life is my marriage. If instead I turned all the guns in my head and I went, I'm going to work on this. Is it possible that the reason your business is limited is because of your limited capacity at home, and it's occupying your brain and your heart and your calories, and that the business will thrive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All this to say that sometimes we're solving the wrong problem. We think the problem is the business, but the business is just a symptom or the consequence. The real problem is home. So also think about your body. You have one nervous system. If your home is another battlefield, this is how you show up at work. If your employee is going through a divorce, he's not going or she's not going to be at their best. If you feel fragmented when you step into your next meeting because you come from a fragmented home, this is how you show up at work. This is your nervous system, and you have only one. You are the leader of your home. So think in leadership concepts. How would you feel if you were a lousy leader at work? What makes you feel that at home you're not a leader and you're not responsible for the culture at home?
Yeah. Right. Even a co-president, even a CFO, like you have a domain, you have a degree of authority. And if you had a vice president even in your company who phoned it in, came to work and said, you have no idea, I'm so stressed out, I can't think about any of this. You want, no, you're, the whole reason you're here is to think about this. But wait a minute, inverse that. All right, well, imagine your spouse, even if your power dynamic is that your spouse is the president and you're the vice president, even if that's the dynamic, fine. They're the president of a company and their vice president is walking in every day completely resigned, saying, we don't understand, I'm so busy doing this other thing. But no, the whole point of us cohabitating and reproducing, like the whole point, this is the only thing that matters. This is the main thing. You got to focus on this thing, man. And I'm not asking you to give me everything, but I'm asking you to give me everything you can. And that's really, really good, Gabriela. I think that's pretty profound. This is why your book's doing so well. You're smart.
I love how you put it. And this is what I strongly believe in. And I'll give you an example of when your home life becomes a place where you can restore, put yourself together, recharge, the ripple effect of that is far beyond your family and far beyond your business. And I like to give this example. My husband and I came back from a 9-day vacation, During that vacation, we also had conversations that we needed to do, and we took the opportunity that we were walking by the ocean to have deeper conversations that, not about life, but things we needed to resolve. So at the end of our vacation, I was so, so grateful for the new connection that got established because we went deeper, because we talked about what was uncomfortable, and obviously for the fun we had and the places we saw. I was so grateful that I needed to do something. When you are so grateful, you want to give back. You
Mm.
have so much in you. And in the hotel we were staying the last night, it was a conference hotel. They run conference center, and there was a blood donation going on. And I have never donated blood because I am afraid of needles. Even doing a blood test for me is a whole, project. And when I saw that, I said to him, I'm going to donate blood. He says, What? You donate blood? I said, Yes, I'm
Mm.
doing this. I am so grateful that it gives me courage, and you on my side, I'm going to do this. And he did it. I felt so good. At a point when the nurse, at a certain point, when the nurse, she actually put the needle, she says, You probably didn't drink enough. There's not enough coming out. We might not be able to do it. And I said, What? All this for nothing? Oh, no, 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 no. We're doing this. Give me a ball. I started pumping with my hand. But
Mm.
it was a big deal for me to be able to do that. But the gratitude, the connection, the strength that came from this time together created that ripple effect.
Yeah.
So I always say a happy home goes far beyond even your business.
Wow. I like that concept of gratitude is contentment that you can give to another person. And I think gratitude, this, if somebody wants something tactical to take away from here, going, okay, but my wife's still gonna roll her eyes when I walk in, or like, look, how do I solve, what do I do next? I genuinely believe this. This is not just a spiritual concept. This is a physical, neurological concept. Gratitude will actually fundamentally change the way you hear and see the world. And you actually, gratitude is a decision.
Mm,
You don't, gratitude is not circumstantial, because people can be thankful for a sunny day even though they come every day. You can choose to celebrate any circumstance, and you can say, I'm grateful today that I have two legs. I'm grateful today that I have one leg. I'm grateful today that I woke up, and you can mean it. And it feels awkward and silly at first and performative, but you can actually create, Dr. Caroline Leaf always talks about recreating those neural pathways. I'm telling you right now, and I want you to hear this on my wall right here. This is going to work. This was when I was like, next time I come on, Gabriela, I'll tell you the story of how bad my life was when this became my mantra, because it was like, if this fails, I will die. Those were the stakes, and my wife will die. That's how I felt. And I said, but this is going to work. And I embedded that mantra so deeply into my spirit, into my brain, that it carries with me through now. And it's so important to me that I had this made and put on my wall. And it's now my mantra for life. This is going to work. Not this worked, or this is going to work today, but this is going to work. So practice gratitude where you can. And then as a final quick thought, I know we're over on time, but I just want to say that the whole concept of Feel Good Close and the Feel Good MSP is, I want to actually incentivize and show people a path to where they can be a better person and make more money because they're a better person, and that they're not mutually exclusive, that you win and you do the right thing. You can do both. And I just love everything you're doing here. I think this has, if I can say it, I think an eternal, a lasting impact, what you're doing in the quality of people's lives. And it's really cool to just be a witness of it.
thank you, Brian. Thank you for sharing, for opening our minds to a different way of looking at business, at selling. We talk about curiosity, we talk about trust, we talk about gratitude, we talk about being a happy person and also a business owner. We talk about that you and your prospect are on the same team. You're not advisories. We talk about so much, but I feel that your message was deep. So I can't wait to do another one. We have to do another one.
I know. I
We have to
think
do
we
another
do.
one.
And we'll have you on my podcast, and then we'll both do a couple of rounds, because let's just keep talking. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
This was a blast. And is there any final message, any words you would like to say before we conclude?
I want to say to anybody who's listening to this podcast, I'm assuming you're listening for one of two reasons. The one is that you really need help. And two is that you are getting help and it's working and it's hard. And I just want to say this is a noble and honorable pursuit. What you are doing right now, you listener right now, the thing you're talking about, even if you go, no, that doesn't apply to me because some people have it worse. I'm talking to you. The pursuit of personal improvement and spiritual and professional and personal integration is a noble, honorable pursuit. And you should be proud of yourself for even listening to these podcasts, because not everybody has the courage to do so. And I deeply, genuinely believe, I have faith and confidence in you that you will be better in a year than you are today. That's all I got.
I was going to say more, but I don't want to. I want your words to be the last words because they are so beautiful and so beautiful. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your belief in the industry, in the people, in the business. But a much more impactful belief is the belief that we can become a better business owner and also become a better spouse, parent, friend, leader, that these are not competing goals. These are all part of the very same journey. And that's a profound belief, and that it's possible, as you said. So thank you for that. And thank you, all of you, for joining us on the Life Engineering Podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, I love for you to share it with another business owner, leader, entrepreneur who needs this reminder, because together we can redefine success. Until next time, bye bye. God bless.